I'm here with Tasita Small, who's agreed to have a conversation with me about Black Lives Matter. So thank you, Tasita, for joining us.
That's okay.
Firstly, Tasita, can you tell me, how do you feel about what's been happening with Black Lives Matter?
I think that it's been a phenomenal explosion of emotions, reactions, and a recognition in the need for change for the way in which Black people are currently treated in the workplace and in society. I think it's amazing.
And how has it felt for you?
I think it's happened so quickly. This part of the reaction. So a lot of these things that are happening now, we've known about for a very long time. We've had, Equal Opportunities Acts and stuff
Yes.
like that. But recently, and obviously the death of George Floyd has sparked and ignited within many people the need for change, but then a lot of emotion has come to the surface, because this is talking about how potentially you've been treated for your entire life, maybe your grandparents going back, and your children also, if you have children. So it's very raw. So it's amazing, and I use the word amazing, but I also use the emotional part. It's draining, it's challenging, it's bringing up a lot of emotions within people that maybe you would have suppressed. So the amazing part for me is we're talking, we're having a really,
Yes.
really honest, frank conversations that we've never ever had before.
I'm sure it must feel quite raw. And how would you describe white privilege?
It's a difficult one, because there's obviously a dictionary definition of what white privilege is, but I would put it as simple as white privilege would be the treatment that you would get if you walked into a room or situation without even opening your mouth. So for example, Julian, if you and I went to do exactly the same thing, because you are a white woman, you'd be treated differently, and most probably in a more positive way, which would give you a privilege in that situation. Whereas I'd be treated differently, and that's what I would coin as being white privilege. Recognizing it, that it happens, is a very big step, and not feeling ashamed or guilty of it, because it just exists. I think what you do with it once you know you have it is what's important.
Absolutely. Thank you. And in terms of racism, what sort of racism have you or your family or your friends actually experienced?
And this is a good question, because people often associate the fact that, I was born here, I live in a very multicultural city, that I wouldn't face racism. But I face it all the time. My family face it all the time. My husband gets stopped often. I would face challenges in certain situations in shops, maybe being profiled walking around the shop. I maybe have microaggressions, where people say things about my skin color or my hair that are inappropriate. And then so it happens all the time, and to the point where sometimes it happens so often you don't see it anymore, but it's there.
Yeah.
It's not always overt, name calling or screaming or shouting at you in a situation. It can be anything from microaggressions right through. So it's experienced all the time. It's experienced in the fact that I won't allow my children to do certain things that maybe white children would do, because I fear racism that they will face. So, having a 16-year-old boy in London, I'm a lot stricter on him than, say, for example, his friends' mums are when he has his white friends.
Right.
I fear that he will be the one that will be stopped, because it's more likely that he will be. A group of 16-year-olds walking around a high street, even if they are a mixed group, the target will be him. So I try to protect my children from it, and myself by not putting myself in certain situations, because it's not nice.
So you're almost having to live differently, just
Definitely.
being very conscious.
Definitely. Definitely.
And one thing that people I know are concerned about is some of the terminology now, and some people are saying, well, all lives matter here, or they're saying perhaps other words that they're concerned about. What's your view on why that's not appropriate?
I think we all know that all lives matter. That is a given. But the focus of Black Lives Matter is saying there's a group of people who, for hundreds of years, have been treated differently, and we need to change that. In order to have equality in the race, we have to treat everybody with equality. but it doesn't happen until we can raise up and have an equal footing people that are Black. So Black lives do matter, and they have to matter in all the situations, in education, in the workplace, in social settings, on television, on screen. It has to be shown in the right light. It can't always be that, you know, it's shown in a negative light, because that's not the narrative or the truth, shall I say. That's not the truth of everybody's experience. So by saying all lives matter, you're saying that you don't see colour. That's something that was quite popular up until, I'd say, the beginning of this year. You would say, I don't see colour, you're equal, you're a woman. But by saying that, you're discounting my experience, which is different, which has landed me where I am today. So it's important that we do say Black Lives Matter. We understand within Black Lives Matter that all lives matter, but let's focus on a group of people who have been disproportionately oppressed for very many years, and that is still shown today in everything we do.
And one last question to Sita. What can white people do to support Black people at the moment?
I think educating yourself is the key. Educate yourself on this experience of others. Educate yourself on how Britain became the way it is today. You know, the Industrial Revolution is a really great example. In schools, you're taught one side of that. The other side of that is where the money came from to fund the Industrial Revolution. It's about balance. That money came from slavery. Therefore, it wasn't just that Britain became great overnight. There was a reason behind it. And then I am the reason I'm here, because of one of those reasons. We were asked to come over and support, in the 50s, the NHS to build the country back. So it's about understanding the reason to why people have different experiences. Very, very important. Educate yourself on a variety of issues, challenges, viewpoints. Don't just take what you're given at face value. I think the other thing would be to diversify your intake of information. So question, you know, who do you get your news from and where? What does your social interest, you know, what are they? Facebook, for example, are all the places that are looking back at you the same as yours? If they are, you need to change that and introduce other voices, other viewpoints, other humours. There's so many things you can do to kind of have more of a balanced intake of information, and that, I think, is something you can do that will help. Even things like shopping. Where do you shop? Where do you buy your clothes? Where do you buy your food? Diversify, and that will help to become more inclusive and help spaces to become better. I think lastly, what I would say is there's a piece about being anti-racist. I think up until April of this year, April, May, it was okay to say, I'm not racist. Now I think you have to be actively anti-racist, seeing things and calling them out. And that doesn't mean putting yourself in tricky situations, but you know when something is not right, especially if you've been educating yourself. So become an anti-racist, have an anti-racist standpoint for your business, with your friends, with your family. That's really, really important.
Thank you so much, Sita. It's been a real privilege to talk to you.
Thank you.